Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is August 9th, 2018. I want to start off by addressing the title of today's program, and I want to try to keep things brief today if possible, but I have a lot on my mind. Last night we did a broadcast, and Climate Depot had pointed out an article about Wikipedia putting fact cards or their version of fact cards in videos that might be conspiracy-like or misleading information. So I asked everyone to let me know if they were getting these kind of WikiLeaks or these Wikipedia entries. And sure enough, our comment section was littered with people saying that they saw the global warming card in front of last night's video, which I'm sure if I'd been paying attention, I would have seen this earlier. But I find it a little upsetting to me, just a little bit. There's nothing on this channel that is conspiracy theory or misleading. We try to keep the facts straight. We take our information from trusted scientists and trusted papers, and we look at the raw data. Here at the Grand Solar Minimum, we have many sources that we confer with before announcing certain events or trying to talk about certain events. I think I've been fair about the way I've reported, especially this summer. I've even called for warmer temperatures from Dr. Roy Spencer. So I'm a realist about this. To me, I think this channel, I pride myself for that. Not being a sensationalist, not being someone who's telling everyone to go out and get your Faraday cages ready. Now, that will be a discussion later in the show as well, but I'm a little discouraged that the platform that I'm making money for right now, my channel is producing income for this platform. To slap a label like that on us, trying to counter our message that's making them money, by the way. Our message is making them money. Countering our message with junk science about man-made global warming and how the planet is in a warming cycle. Just before we went on the air, I checked a couple of topics on YouTube. And I'm not going to name the topics because it'll offend people. They'll get butthurt. But I found it interesting that they didn't get those Wikipedia cards under their videos. And then it kind of clicked. And this is how I'm going to take it, and this is how all of us should take this. Some of these videos, some of these channels out there, they produce information with no real science evidence. Just a lot of people who talk with fancy word salads. Those don't get cards because they're obvious in their ignorance. But channels like this channel here, Grand Solar Minimum, we've touched a nerve by our sheer reporting of events of around the world, by our sheer reporting of space weather on a daily basis, talking about cosmic rays, influx, cloud nucleation, talking about crop loss, but doing it in a way where it's not scaring people, but it's starting to highlight certain topics to show you that where it's happening, the frequency that it's happening. So on one side, I'm discouraged to see the platform that I'm making money for, they make money off of my content, is trying to counter my message. But the silver lining in this is that we are doing a good job here at this channel. People that contribute to this channel on a daily basis, our comment section is getting more active with people from regions around the world talking about crop loss or weather, confirming it. We didn't have these kind of comments last year. Last year or the year before, when we tried to do anything talking about produce shortage in Europe, we got a lot of trolls. This year, just last night, comment from a colorist says local vegetable shortage in North England, UK, local organic vegetable farm really struggling which is up the road from myself. No rain, although they are adapting. Had a heavy shower, and I do mean torrential, of course, cosmic ray influx. A couple of weeks ago with hail, same thing. Yesterday it was cold, still no rain. I remember 1978, you're right. 77 was hotter than now. I saw a building collapse opposite where I worked. Enjoyed your show. Thank you very much for the comment. But as I look through the comments, we're talking about, of course, everyone let me know about the card for the global warming stuff. But also, here's another comment from Bananas. I thought maybe I bought weird kind of corn. I'm so glad you said that. I've been trying to figure out why my corn is so small when it was supposed to be 6 to 8 feet tall, and my beans climb up and it's only about 3 or 4. Again, another observation that all it takes is maybe saying something, and other people might start paying attention to their surroundings. There was also another one here. It says Darren Sansom. I've seen fields full of French beans here in the UK dead with the drought. So this year and each year that we continue to report on this, what we're talking about is true. Because now we're starting to see confirmation from folks from different parts of the world telling us I live down the road from this and I'm seeing the struggles. And it's not people that these folks are new subscribers. So I guess in a way we should take these global warming cards they put in our videos as a compliment, because they're scared of the message actually penetrating the mainstream way of thinking, and maybe possibly getting some heads turned around and start looking at what we're displaying here. Take a look at it before you ridicule it and call us a denier or try to counter the message. And again, without being too disrespectful to the platform, but the platform has totally violated this channel's First Amendment rights, in my opinion. So I'm going to leave it at that. Sorry for the rant to start off the show, but it just really frustrated me at first. But then when I saw other channels weren't getting these Wikipedia, there was no way that those channels were truth. They were totally entertainment. They even said so in the description box. So it makes me feel now that this channel is just doing a really good job at relaying a message that's going to be believable, because we're trying to break this down in layman's terms for some of you folks. I know for me, it's been a learning process. The last 2 years, I've so much more to learn, but I think each year that we continue to go through this together, everyone here is going to be way more knowledgeable about this than they ever thought they'd be. Let's take a look at some space weather real quick. Solar wind speeds are sitting around 362.8 kilometers per second with a density of 7.0. Our sun is blink once again, folks. Should be no surprise. That's 6 days in a row, sitting at 127 days of the year in 2018. Looking at our KP indices, we're at a quiet 1 with a 24-hour max of 2. And looking at the SDO, looking at the coronal hole that will be affecting our magnetic field sometime around August 11th. Now, also there is a weaker coronal hole developing right where that facula is right now. And I'll go ahead and get out my handy dandy little circle. This right here, we'll keep a watchful eye on that, as well as this will be here around August 11th, possibly following another minor disturbance from a coronal hole that will be Earth facing if it continues to grow. But right now, very, very weak chance. It's very small at this time. Excuse me. All right, take a look at Tsi readings. Right now, for August 1st, the 6-hour average, they were looking at a 1360.623. So TSI has been hovering in the 0.6 values for quite some time now. I remember, like I said, before we took our little break to move and everything, it was fluctuating from 0.6 to 0.8. Take a look at some headlines. Strong 6.2 aftershock strikes Lombok 4 days after the devastating 7.0 killed 131 people in Indonesia. Now, this quake hit just 4 days after this devastating 7.0 in the same area. As of late August 8, the death toll reaches 131. 1,477 people were seriously injured, and over 150,000 people are displaced. Over 40,000 houses were damaged, as well as over 450 schools. The numbers are still expected to rise as data collection is still not complete. According to the USGS, the epicenter of today's quake was located at 23.2 kilometers north-northeast of Myanmar. There are about 4.7 million people living within the area of this quake. Here's some Twitter information on the damage that had happened, but there was another stat. Right here, July 28th, the same area was hit by a 6.4 this year now, with a depth of 3.9, killing at least 17 people, and over 160 were injured, with thousands of homes that were damaged. So this area continues to see increases in pulses now, but it's starting to get a little bit more activity developing in this region, as we have seen here in the recent days. Want to look at floods in Niger. We haven't talked about Africa in a while, but there for a while it seemed like every other day we were getting a new headline from devastating floods. Well, 22 people are dead and thousands have been left homeless in Niger after torrential rains have caused heavy flooding. As of August 6th, 49,845 people have been affected, and unfortunately we have recorded 22 deaths. The floods have destroyed more than 3,000 homes and nearly 4,000 hectares of crops. Livestock has also been lost and drinking water supplies have been affected. The southern regions of Madari and Difa are among the worst hit, and some 2,000 people in the capital of Niamey have been left homeless after heavy rains earlier this week. He said the government and charities have already distributed food, clothing, mosquito nets to those in need. The deaths come after the United Nations aid chief raised alarm in June over worsening food crisis in Sahel region that has set malnutrition rates skyrocketing to their worst level since 2012. This is another thing that goes hand in hand with a lot of these African flood stories that we've talked about, the food crisis and the abrupt changes, and what Sasha Dobler talks about with the famine and associated with grand solar minimum. And again, we are at the very, very beginning of this, and so things are going to get worse before they get better. That's the unfortunate part about this. More than 100,000 forced out of their homes in Myanmar floods. 10 people have been killed. More than 100,000 have been forced to flee their homes after days of heavy monsoon rains flooded villages in central and southern Myanmar. According to the government officials, the Burmese National Disaster Management Committee has urged residents near riverbanks and low-lying areas to move to higher ground after floods shut down roads and submerged villages, leaving communities stranded. As of Tuesday, more than 119,000 people across 5 provinces have been displaced by rising waters, with the Magway region in the central Myanmar particularly hard hit, with more than 70,000 affected. And I remember last summer we had quite a bit of flooding in this region. Very misleading picture here. Smiling folks on the bus. I'm probably just thankful that they're alive and were rescued. Can you imagine the relief being caught up in floodwaters such as these, and to know that you're going to be okay now? Definitely smiles of relief for sure. Not happy about what's going on, but relieved that they were saved. We'll leave the link in the description. Check out more about the floods there. And NOAA forecasters lower Atlantic hurricane season prediction again. This just came out about an hour ago on What's Up With That. Conditions in the ocean and atmospheric are conspiring to produce a less active Atlantic hurricane season than initially predicted in May, though NOAA and FEMA are raising caution as the season enters its peak months. There are still more storms to come. The hurricane season is far from being over. We urge continued preparedness and vigilance, said Gary Bell, PhD, lead seasonal hurricane forecaster at NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. Now, listen, just because he is a PhD doesn't mean that he is warning of impending doom or any kind of impending storm that might be threatening the region. He is a professional, and this is what he does for a living. So he's always going to preach preparedness and vigilance. So this is just him being responsible. Don't read into this comment as there's something on the horizon that's really big and you better be ready for it. That preparedness should always be there, especially if you live on any coastal parts, the Gulf Coast and the East Coast. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. Seasonal forecasters with NOAA's Climate Prediction Center have increased the likelihood of below normal Atlantic hurricane season to 60%. Now, I remember when this came out, and they predicted that it was going to be just as active as last year, maybe slightly stronger. And I don't know if, I don't understand how some of these folks could forecast really as sudden as we've seen the ocean temperatures change in the Atlantic this year from April, May. I mean, folks probably thought the temperatures were going to stay above baseline. It's going to be summer in the northern hemisphere. Typical to expect the same kind of activity. But that didn't happen. We were looking at colder than usual temperatures right now for this time of year. Here's the North Atlantic sea surface. It is back on the rise. It's down. It's now up to negative 0.738. But folks, back in April, this was in the +5 region or higher. And when the drop started happening, we thought, well, surely it's going to rebound. And I thought maybe right here was where we were going to see that back over baseline trend again and just kind of hover around this area. But instead, we plunged below our already record low temp, anomaly temp of negative 0.10 or 1.0. Let's get that right. I think we got as low as negative 1.2 something. So we'll continue to watch this. And as of right now, the El Nino, well, that's getting favorable readings right now. If we pay attention to trends, we've peaked out in this same region before, previously in July, and have dropped slightly, but only to regain strength. So it's early. We have time to watch this grow or not grow. But as long as we keep seeing temperatures like this in the North Atlantic and the Caribbean and the tropical areas there, the predictions for hurricanes, to me, people who follow this topic should understand that it's going to be low. And the 4 storms that we've already had, I mean, guys, the named storms that we've had this year, Alberto, Beryl, Chris, and Debbie, they all appeared and drifted away like a fart in the wind, basically, especially Chris and Debbie. Nothing to worry about with those storms. I'll leave the link in the description. Interesting article. And again, I'm glad that these guys over here, Anthony Watts, is pointing out once again, I think it's funny when I see people change their forecast predictions. This is not the first. This is the second change in the forecast. Each month they change it and they lower it. And it reminds me of a guy who would fill out an NCAA tournament bracket, and then 2 weeks in, I'm going to change all my picks real quick. Here, this is what I really think is going to happen. This is what I think some of these forecasters are doing, and it's the egg on the face right now. Somebody had said, I can't wait for 2020 so AGW can explain why their theory is not true, why we're not a warming planet by then. And he's right. By then, it's going to be a clear trend of what's happening with the temperatures. And I wanted to quickly read a little bit of this article here. Aussie Agriculture Minister on climate change. I don't give a rat's ass if it's man-made or not. You shouldn't feel afraid to turn on a heater or a light at night. This is a serious situation in Australia. A comment from a video talking about the energy prices that we're going to experience by 2045 because of green renewable energy sources. And Australia is apparently a huge continent that goes really deep into the green renewable energy, and they want to make it their majority resource of energy. And so they're already dealing with, and his biggest complaint was that the prices are already skyrocketing. And it says here, it's refreshing to see a senior politician say something sensible about climate change. Australian Agriculture Minister David Littleproud is more worried about affordable, reliable electricity, so people can heat their homes or pump water to irrigate the fields than whether mankind is causing climate change. This goes back, and the whole interview right here is transcripted out for you, but this goes back to what I was talking about with the dangers of relying on batteries to back up peak energy, and how we don't have enough storage right now to battle that peak energy. So here, where I made the comment about if it wasn't for coal and nuclear plants firing up in the Northeast, we would have had rolling blackouts. And the cost is so out of control in Australia, it's not even about whether or not they can get the power to their home, but folks are really cutting back because of how expensive it is. So this person here is suggesting, just like other people from this part of the world, they're expressing that the cost of their energy because of renewables, because of green technology, is through the roof. And it's actually affecting people's personal lives to where maybe they cut the heat back a little bit, or maybe they don't turn the lights on as much. They live the quality of life that you have to live to maintain a healthy budget in your home. That to me is not worth it, doing those little things. Whether man-made is causing global warming or not, I know a lot of us here, and myself included, believe that that's not the case. And I'm not saying we should burn fossil fuels at an irresponsible rate either. But again, another claim for our natural sources such as coal, clean coal with carbon capture technology, will save us in these cold winters. And they're having some cold winters. We're going to see next couple years. I'm not going to get too excited, but we will see. And it's going to be cold. It saves the day. The narrative will change. And if people want to still contest it, especially when we start seeing these much colder winters, which I believe this winter, 2018, 2019, are going to be pretty freaking cold. And it's probably looking like 19 into 20 is going to be a brutal one if things continue the trend that we have seen so far. Moving on to another article. I'm not going to read this one, really. I read it myself. Everybody knows that the Parker probe is going to be launched on August 11th. This is the best description of the mission that I've found as far as what they're trying to accomplish here. And the main thing is that they want to measure the temperature of the corona, just so many things about the corona that we've never been able to actually get close enough to measure. Well, this device, this satellite, will literally touch the sun and bring back the information that man still, everything is, for the most part, is up in the air for as far as theories go, whether it's dynamo or whether it's electric universe. You know, there's still so much out there that we have to learn before we can really definitive say it's this or it's that. So I'm excited about this, and I don't think this project was a coincidence. I think these things are timed out perfectly. They knew this time would be in a minimum. So what they're doing is they're launching this probe during a minimum, and it's going to capture the best of both worlds, because we know that this cycle is now expected to see a maximum, a very weak one, however, weaker than 24s. So it's not even going to be really considered much of a maximum. But this probe, the mission is that long where it will witness observations from both minimum and maximum of 25. So check it out. The link is in the description. I'm very excited about this mission. I can't wait until we start seeing the data coming back about what the Parker probe has learned and discovered. And, I'm shocked. This is an article from the Washington Post, believe it or not. And they're talking about solar minimum. they're mentioning things like SPACEWEATHER.com's talking about 32 of the past 33 days have lacked single spot. This is a 9-day-old article, by the way. They're talking about how scientists are predicting a weaker cycle than 24. 25% weaker, according to the Washington Post. Talks about polar fields strengthen in the next year. Talks about how they flip on the sun, that we are 750,000 years from the last flip that we've had on Earth, and we're due to have them every 250,000 years. So there's your fear porn from Washington Post. They had to throw that one in. But for the most part, talking about how they lost communications during the Irma storm for 8 hours. Aviation, maritime, ham radio, and other emergency bands were unavailable. Powerful flares that erupted in September were an important reminder that even during solar minimum, the sun can have profound effects on systems on Earth. They briefly talk about Greenland blocks, about how snowy it makes things, and they're saying it's going to be snowy in Washington this year because they say the last solar minimum coincided with the snowiest winter on record in Washington in 2009-2010. So I wonder that if they accidentally hired somebody with critical thinking skills and the ability to connect the dots, because there's nothing, and I've read the article, I'll go over it one more time, but I'm pretty confident there's nothing in this article that is misleading or untrue. And to ask the question, the sun is spotless and serene, what does it mean? I was really expecting to hear, scientists expect minimal temperature change and this and that, we're still going to be warming. No, they actually kind of talked the truth about solar cycles and what less sunspots do, and how that they've mentioned it twice, that the activity from solar cycle 25 is going to be weaker than 24. And again, solar cycle 24 was the weakest in the last 150 years. So, excuse me. Love the peach tea. All right, so now, okay, this article here, I want to retract. I was on a roll last night. I was throwing out articles. I thought I found some good content. When I saw this article at first, I was like, wow, that's cold. Talking about Alaska and how it's going to be freezing, below 12, minus 13, below 12. You know, temperatures not looking so warm. However, I accidentally participated in some unnecessary fear porn and sensationalism. At the very bottom of this paragraph, it says, this is at elevation 18,999 feet, so probably not unusual. And I was called out by a subscriber, and she was right. You know, I'm glad she pointed it out. She's the one that pointed this out to me about this being in parentheses, and that maybe I rushed through this a little too quick just to prove a point that it's still cold some places. And I guess that's what I'm talking about when, you know, that integrity is important to me. So I felt it was important to come back and tell you guys she's right. I want to retract the report on these conditions. These are almost 20,000 feet up on a mountain. And the fact that the person even admits that this is not unusual, my next question is why? Why even do any reporting on it if this is not unusual? This is misleading. There's a lot of people out there who get really excited when they see stuff like I did yesterday. Negative 12, negative. Oh, wow, it's so cold. I totally missed this at the bottom. And there it is. Plain as day. So I think it's important that we start really doing a better job as a community and weeding out the... I get on global warming for having alarmists. I don't think it should be tolerated on this side either. And that's what I'm getting at here, is that there's no reason to exaggerate or sensationalize something to prove a point, especially when all you have to do is keep being brilliant like you normally are and show the data and the charts that you show. You don't have to reach out. And I know it's a slow news week. Mari and I haven't really missed a whole lot since our absence. I get it. But to me, there's enough confusion out there, and I just feel like that there's no reason for that. If it's not unusual, if that's normal, to me, that article was trying to put in your mind that, hey, this isn't normal in August. Well, in actuality, it is, especially when it's 20,000 feet up on a mountain. So this moves me to the final segment of our articles, Asshole of the Week, and it's early one this week because it's Thursday and it's not really the week's over, but this one wins it all. Here's climatologist Michael Mann tweeted in reply, "Hey, Mr. Trump, these wildfires are being magnified by human-caused climate change. You're attempting to sabotage international efforts to act on climate change. That's a crime against the planet. Add it to the list." That's what Mann told Think Progress in an email, that if denial of climate science continues to drive Trump's policies, then the legacy of his administration will be, among other things, a charred planet. Well, sir, you deserve the asshole of the week for that one. Because what Trump is doing with his policies right now with the EPA is reinstating coal is smart. It's going to save you some money, Mr. Mann. You will have cheaper energy bills. You can thank Mr. Trump. Once he gets what he wants with the EPA, trust me, we will start to see these energy prices relax. If they don't, then we have a problem. But I believe we'll see them go down once we get these regulations removed. If these companies can continue to develop better and better carbon capture technology, if you're worried about too much pollution, that's fine. We'll keep working hard to find a solution for that as well. But people like Michael Mann, who want to label the president of the United States as a criminal and that he's going to leave this planet in charred remains. It's all, now I've heard it all. That's why I'm giving him the Asshole of the Week award, because now this man, who obviously wants those CO2 taxes to continue rolling in, that's why he's still able to run his mouth right now, and he's pushing hard for more money. And he's got to sell it hard. So let's blame the president of the United States for destroying the world. That's a new one. Crimes against the planet. Shame on you, Donald. And this to me, people say don't make it political. Well, this is what happens. These global warmists make it political. They want to blame Trump for the planet's demise of the climate. All because Trump is trusting real science. Science-based information that tells him that CO2 is not the problem. Our CO2 levels are higher than what they were in previous warm periods that had record temperatures compared to what we're seeing right now. And we talked about this last night. I don't really have to continue to go into my rant, but I know everybody here does not like Mr. Mann, and I particularly thought that this was just a low blow, cheap shot, political move, and he wants to join in with the crowd of people that's got their pitchforks and torches and blaming him for everything. I mean everything. But this one takes the cake. So I wish folks like Mann would understand what science really is. These people, and no offense, there's meteorologists out there who I believe are interested in climatology, and they're really trying to understand what makes those variables drive. But the most of them go to these college universities, and it's almost like footnotes of weather. These people really, some of them really don't understand science of anything. I've pointed that out. Local meteorologists are the worst. There is one guy I do enjoy watching, Weather Nation, Steve Glazier. I think he is one of the most honest weather people out there. And I watched another late night broadcast of his, and they were talking about the tropical season, how the low hurricane so far. And he actually mentioned the colder waters in the Atlantic. And I'm not sure if he would have said that. Maybe he would have anyway, but I have to feel like that he's the type of person, when I asked him the questions about what was going on in the North Atlantic early on when this all first started, the fact that he actually really thought about that. He chewed on that thought and he said, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's really cold water right now out there. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't trying to censor that there's cold records in the ocean in the Atlantic. Every meteorologist I've ever come in contact would always deny any cold record. Any cold record. They call it fake news. So, Trump has surrounded himself with people who understand the science between CO2. Now, I will say this. I did see where Trump has made someone the head of his science department or whatever, and the person that he picked is a head scratcher. He's not a global warming. He's more like a lukewarm global warming type of guy. So I don't know if is Trump now playing politics for midterms now just to keep people from losing votes. I don't like that because he's been strong all his entire presidency. He's been strong with people in the EPA that don't believe that CO2 is causing warming. He has relaxed a lot of things on the official websites. The words climate change and global warming are disappearing. So he started his stance, I thought, was genuine. So I hope that this person that he brought in to be head of his science department is going to help expose the real data and prove that it's not man-made warming, that it was natural, and that now things are changing and they're not going to continue to warm. I'm hoping maybe this lukewarm global warmist has made a switch and decided to follow along with the science that's trying to be presented right now by many people on YouTube, many scientists across the world, and political figures now. So, take a look at our Noaa Radar for any kind of advisories or warnings. Lots of heat warnings in the Northwest. Never thought really I'd say a lot of that, but red flag warnings, of course, for fires. We are seeing some flash flood watches in New Mexico. Hallelujah. You guys need all of that. But blowing dust advisory in parts of Arizona in the desert. Air quality alerts also in Oklahoma, parts of Missouri, also the far western part, northwestern part of Missouri with air quality results. And other than that, believe it or not, folks, here in the South and the Southeast and the Northeast and the Midwest, we're pretty quiet. We do have some shower activity, but nothing to write home about. This seems like a repeat every day. We look at the radar, the south part of the United States, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas will see some showers later this evening. And the Northeast, that strong system that moved through yesterday is now up in parts of Maine and heading up towards Canada right now. But other than that, really everything's pretty quiet weather-wise as far as the lower 48 go. And no action yet in the Gulf or anything like that. So not a whole lot to report on as far as weather other than it's a typical stormy pattern for an August. We're looking at off and on showers throughout the Midwest, South and East Coast and the Northeast. And temperatures as well, they are faring pretty normal for this time of year. So, but I did mention in last night's show that we do have some relief on the way towards the end of August, especially for the Northeast. I'm sure folks in the Northwest would like to see some too, and there is indications by the 16th of August we start to see it cooling down a little bit on the coast. Still kind of warm on the mainland of the Northwest, but eventually we will start to see these temperatures relax just a little bit. But it's still summer by all means, folks, that's for sure. Mari, I wanted to check in with you real quick, see how was everyone well behaved today in the chat, or did we have any issues?
Hey, Jake, we're trying to keep it on topic here at GSM, but you're just turning heads in that Browns gear today, and I'm just trying to explain to people it's not a mental problem. You're true, it's escape from reality for you, right?
Well,
and I said, people are like, well, what about stress relief? It's not real stress relief because they always lose. I'm like, well, they only have to win one game per season for us to be happy. Right, Jake?
Okay. So that was totally uncalled for. But no, I'm excited. We have a game today. There's 11 games, actually. I'm excited for football season. I'm going to tell you this right now, folks. There's no reason to stop enjoying the things that you enjoy. If you like baseball, go watch a game. If you like football, go watch the game. It's nice to be able to have an outlet to get away from the normal stress of everyday life between politics and financial, and then the topic of climate change in general. You have to decompress every once in a while. And I had a guy tell me 2 summers ago that I was wasting my time. I went to a Cleveland Browns training camp, and he told me what a waste of time. What a waste of time. All the stuff that's happening around the world, and you're wasting your time watching football. No, I'm not wasting time. Again, it's a way for me to decompress, and everybody needs that outlet, or you're going to drive yourself crazy. Whether it's fishing, sewing, football, whatever, video games, board games, or just typical camping trips. Do what you still can. Because in the article that I showed earlier, the one thing that I applaud about this article here, about the Parker probe, with the technology that we have now, this article addresses that if we ever had a Carrington type event, that's it. That's it. What do you think it would do to our systems now? If it destroyed telegraph systems all over the world, what do you think it would do to our grids? Then it's back to the horse and buggy era. So, again, I love everybody's enthusiasm. This is the most important thing in my life is grand solar minimum. But once a week from September, usually just through January, I get one day for 4 hours to watch a sport and a team that I've enjoyed watching all my life. And I'm going to cherish these moments. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to cherish these moments. I'm going to cherish everything I can. This warm climate that we're having right now, I'm going to cherish that. But in closing, guys, we really do appreciate your support. We appreciate all the comments, the questions. There's some really sharp thinkers out there, people who are new to the topic, people who have been here for a while. So with that being said, guys, I hope you have a great evening. And we will be back tomorrow evening, I think at normal time. And then Saturday, I'm going to try to do a little early again, somewhere around the 4 o'clock hour. I'd like to bring Henrik back on. And I know if we go on around 4 o'clock, it's not 4 in the morning for him if we go on at 9 o'clock here. So we might do an afternoon show on Saturday as well. Sunday, we will take an off day to kind of regroup and try to retool for the next week. And we will do our best to provide the best grand solar minimum news that's out there on the web and everywhere else. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk soon.